Do it. Hooray! It actually, I'm always still, even though it so rarely fails anymore, I'm still surprised when it works.
Magic.
I probably shouldn't be. This is Geek Out episode 56. I am Russell Holly. Sal, why don't you introduce yourself, and then Phil, why don't you introduce yourself, even though I kind of just did.
Hey, I'm Sal from Geek.com and ExtremeTech.com.
I'm Phil from AndroidCentral.com. I'm remembering to put in headphones. I'm moving over here.
Cool. We had kind of a bunch of weird news happen this week, but before we do any of that stuff, I finally get to talk about Mario Kart, so I'm going to. Because it's been 2 weeks since I've kind of like had this to myself. Sometimes playing like 2 or 3 hours a night, driving my wife up a wall. I'm pretty sure that if like Yoshi comes out of my living room anytime soon, my wife is going to strangle me. But it has been 2 weeks since I've started playing the game, and it is by far my favorite game right now. I am just thoroughly addicted, and I am not a huge fan of racing games. This was kind of a new experience for me. It is 60 frames a second, 1080p racing, which is cool because it's the Wii U, and we see like the other consoles kind of struggling to do that with more graphically intensive games. So it's neat to see how this works out. But it's a really standard Mario Kart game. Like you start off with a kind of a basic set of Mario characters, and you unlock more as you play along. But they did really cool stuff with the kites and the wheels that you could unlock as you continued racing. That really just made the game feel like a ton of fun. And neither of you guys have played this game, so I'm kind of talking to myself right now.
Yeah,
no, you're doing good. Keep going.
It really is. It's a ton of fun, and it makes me sad that it's not available on things that people actually own. Because I have a Wii U, and I honestly don't know another person who does. But I know people on the internet who are going to play with me as soon as the game comes out in another 2 weeks. But it is a lot of fun. I wanted to take a couple minutes and talk about it since the review went live this morning. It is by far the best game on the Wii U right now, and well worth getting the console to have, because there are actually a bunch of decent games on the Wii U now. Like there was a problem with that when it first came out. But now there's actually a ton of really good games for it. So I think that if you were looking for an excuse to get the console, then this is definitely it.
This is a pretty legitimate system seller for the Wii U, right? As much as the Wii U is going to have a system seller, this and some of the bigger Mario games are going to be it. So.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty much this, and then towards the end of the year, Super Smash Brothers, because Super Smash Brothers is going to come out for the DS first. Over the summer, people are going to get to play it over the summer and kind of do that, but then it'll come out for the console later in the year. So between that and Mario Kart, then this is huge, and there are non-Nintendo games for the Wii U that are a lot of fun to play too, like the Wonderful 101 and games like that. But this is definitely, I'm really looking forward to seeing more people online so that I can play with things that aren't computers.
One of the finer points that had always bothered me with Mario Kart was that the game had really terrible rubber banding. So if you got too far ahead, it would always find a way for the AI to sort of catch up, and that usually happened through the blue shells or through the lightning bolt, which essentially just forms of cheating that are built into the game.
So it's actually kind of funny. This was something that I was talking with Matthew, our UK editor, about, because he brought that up as well, that rubber banding was kind of a pain in previous games. I recorded a video for our YouTube channel where I got hit by a red shell and then a lightning bolt immediately afterwards, and still pulled away and won the game. I really feel like rubber banding is probably something that happens in 50cc to kind of give it a little bit more of a competitive advantage.
Okay.
But I didn't feel like it was there in 100cc or 150cc. But it's hard to measure because you don't really have a map anymore.
Okay.
There's a map on the gamepad, a map of the track that you're racing on, but you have to be constantly looking up and down to see it. So as best as I can tell, in 100cc and 150cc, rubber banding is gone, or at the very least significantly reduced. But it doesn't change the fact that in 150cc, your enemies are now vengeful, Like the people that you race against, I hit somebody. This happened 6 or 7 times where I would hit one character, and that character would rededicate the rest of the race to messing me up.
Like, do they start
awesome.
talking smack or something?
Yeah, no, like they start getting items and like specifically targeting you with the items. It was really crazy.
That's cool.
All right.
It was definitely an interesting change in how the AI worked and stuff. So, if you own a Wii U, and you don't own this game on the 30th, then you should feel bad. But yeah, I think that this could actually be something that gets people to purchase a Wii U and put it in their homes. Unlike the TiVo integration that I was lied about would happen.
Yeah.
Still hasn't happened. So, Phil, I asked you to come on today to talk about a bunch of Android things because apparently that's a thing that you're a fan of.
I get paid to do that. Yes, I am a fan of it. And I get paid to do it, which worked out really well for me.
You got a chance recently to mess around with the HTC One Mini 2, which I have not done yet.
Let me find it here.
It's lost in that giant pile of phones. This
happens more than you would think. I'll be wearing this phone, and I'm looking all over my office, and it turns out it's right in front of me under the pile of phones.
Right. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty much an HTC One, kind of like the One M8 that I've got here. It's just not got the camera on top, and it's a little smaller. And what do you think about it so far?
I tell you what's really intriguing to me about this phone. First, I'll just flat out come out and say this is what I wanted the M8 to look and feel like. It's just a better size for me personally. I think it should be a better size for everybody else too because it fits me better. So that's the way it works. No, it's certainly easier for me to hold. It's actually just about the size of the M7 if you look here.
Oh, okay.
Almost identical. It's a little more narrow, not quite as wide. It's really close though, and it's. I mean, let's caveat all this by saying it's not a U.S. phone, at least not yet.
Right.
So Europe, Middle East, and Asia, EMEA, if you know the acronym. So my question is going to be, if I'm out there trying to buy not a high-end phone, and I haven't seen pricing yet on this, but do I try to find like a second-hand M7, or do I go with this? Now the M7 has Zoe's, it has the video highlights, it does have Sense 6, so it's been updated. It still has a very capable processor, and it's still a very, very good phone. So do I try to find something a little cheaper and go with that? And I don't think I've really seen much pricing on the Mini yet. So that's a big question for me. Otherwise, it looks and runs great. It's just missing a lot of the really good stuff that makes the M8 really, really good, and it's missing a lot of the stuff that was in the M7.
Yeah, so there's none of the gesture waking stuff, which is really cool on the M8.
Right.
The camera features are replaced, because you have a 13 megapixel camera instead of the dual camera in the back.
No IR ports and no TV stuff.
Yeah, no TV stuff. But it definitely looked like it would still be a pretty capable phone. You raised an interesting point about choosing it over the M7. I'm also kind of wondering whether or not there would be situations where it gets chosen between that and the Desire 816.
Mm-hmm.
Because those are, especially as far as the camera and the processor go, are relatively similar. I mean, the casings are obviously very different.
The feel, the look and feel of those two phones, of the 816 and the Mini 2, are just night and day. I mean, one is this flat plastic, and it's very nice plastic. I don't think it's a cheap feeling phone at all. But one is this flat plastic slab, and the other is this soft, sexy, gunmetal gray in this case, phone. And so really they're cousins, I guess, but they're kind of distant cousins a little bit.
And this is something we've ended up talking about a lot here because Sal is actually a fan of the polycarbonate from the One X.
Oh yeah, the One X, yeah. Or the Lumia, the early Lumias were really nice.
Yeah, and so the 816 is a lot closer to that. It's completely flat instead of the curved backing.
Right.
With some of these phones.
It's glossier than the Lumias or the original One X. So
we also had announced today the Xiaomi. I'm going to call it MyPad, even though it is MiPad, but it amuses me to call it MyPad, which is the first Tegra One tablet that we will probably never ever see here in the U.S., and that makes me sad. It's, I mean, ridiculous as far as specs go. It's got a
Yeah.
very high-end display. The Tegra One, the Tegra K1 processor is really great. Decent battery size. There was nothing, as I was reading everything that I could about this, there was nothing wrong with this hardware. It kind of looked a little bit like an iPad Mini with iPhone 5C colors strapped to the back, but I mean, as far as, wanting an Android tablet that was not a 10-inch tablet that had plenty of power behind it, this seemed really, really perfect, but it feels like we'll probably never see it here.
Yeah, from what I understand, the Xiaomi stuff, it just may not come here. It's just probably just never intended to come here. Some of it, and we're gonna have to be okay with that. If it wasn't for the sort of the kind of really rapid growth of the country and their wrapping in of Yugo Barra and stuff like that, then we probably wouldn't even be paying attention to it. But they're doing a lot of cool stuff lately, so everyone's sort of watching their news and following things along really closely. And,
yeah, I mean, they just released some really neat-looking networking hardware. Their 802.11 AC routers were all really cool-looking and super cheap.
Super cheap, yeah.
And this is a lot of the same thing. I mean, this is a $240 tablet, which is cheap even by Nexus pricing for tablets, and it's got tons and tons of hardware in it. If it's not ever going to make it here to the U.S., I wonder why it got advertised in U.S. pricing. Like, I mean, when you put $1 behind it, there's kind of a suggestion that someone in the U.S. would care.
Is that how they did their pricing, or did they actually? Was it just translated?
I mean, it could have been translated, but like Hugo on Google Plus announced it in dollars and didn't ever put yen or anything next to it as far as pricing. I mean, it was all dollars for most of the things that I saw, which may have been deliberate. It may have just been to grab headlines, but it was definitely. That was what got me excited, was that seeing a dollar sign attached to it made me think that it might maybe be available here someday. But there's a bunch of information suggesting that it might not be.
Sorry, if you need me, I'm over here blogging that Russell announced the Xiaomi tablet for exclusive.
I did. It's happening.
Hey, speaking of like paying for things though, I think this new. You're going to be able to use PayPal and Google Play now to buy apps and stuff. That's kind of
yeah. They've updated that so that you can. They've done enhanced carrier support, so carrier billing is going to be a little better, and you can do fun stuff with PayPal, which is something that it's actually kind of funny because developers tried to shoehorn PayPal into some of their stuff, into some of their apps a couple of years ago, and it got shut down by Google for some of the built-in apps, and now it's included as part of the Google Play setup.
So do people still use PayPal?
There are definitely people who still use PayPal. I mean, it's interesting. I see this a lot when people complain about specific countries where, like, the Google Play, Google Wallet isn't available.
Yeah.
Developers who develop in those countries can't, basically can't charge for their apps because they can't use Google Wallet, and that was like the only thing that you could use. But so that meant that they basically had to either create a weird, awkward web-based purchase system and then do codes and all of this crazy stuff for apps, or they could just release it free and try and do ad-supported. Well, now not only can these countries charge for their apps, but people who don't want to use Google Wallet have alternatives as well.
And not just Google Wallet. I mean, yes, Google Wallet, but it also means you don't have to have a credit card, which, for whatever reason.
I've made a pretty concerted effort to cut PayPal out of my life over the past few years. It's actually gone pretty smoothly. The only thing you can't get away from is eBay and that sort of thing. But
that's like the original PayPal thing, so that makes sense.
Yeah, it's really tied together now. So to avoid PayPal with eBay is just almost impossible.
You should just cut eBay out of your life, and then.
Yeah, no, and I mostly have, just like a lot of people, it seems. It's just that, once in a while, eBay is just like, there's no alternative sometimes. You want to buy something used or something rather obscure, which is like most of my discretionary spending.
strange random things. So
Yeah.
we also saw the Moto E this week. It got announced, another crazy cheap phone. It's $129 for the base model from Motorola. And Sal, you spent a couple minutes with it, right?
Yeah, we have one in the house. I didn't play with the Moto G LTE. Those were harder to come by. But we have a Moto E. As we discussed previously, it's like a Moto X, except a fair bit thicker and not quite as quick. It's got a slower processor, I think the Snapdragon 200. And then it has removable backplate, which it's pretty hard to get off. I was a little surprised there, but you could remove the backplate.
It's the same backplate system as the Moto E, which sorry, the Moto G, which I really liked, especially when they did the flip covers and stuff that were kind of replaceable. It's just kind of a small but interesting gesture.
Yeah, so the battery is still locked down, which I don't know if a lot of people know that. The battery, you can see the battery, it's clearly there, but you just can't get at it. So you just can get at the SIM card slot and then your micro SD. So, and that's pretty cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, as far as the phone goes, I was pretty fine with it. Some people around the office were complaining about, some dropped frames and stuff, but I really didn't have that issue so much. So for what it is, for $129 Android smartphone, that is going to get, I think they said at least one update over time. It's really impressive for what it is.
Yeah, I mean, that price point is the feature, right? It's not so much what the phone does. It's the fact that you just bought it for $129. That's like the one bullet point you need to have.
One of the things we talked about around the office was how much of a problem is it that it doesn't have a front-facing camera? Is the lack of the selfie taking, is that going to just totally mean people write off this phone? I said no.
No,
I just figured, like, a camera, if you need a phone, you would just turn your hand and take the picture. Some people thought it would hold back some people from buying it, but
I mean, sure, it'll certainly hold back, a couple people from buying it, because I mean that's a feature for everybody. But I think ultimately, Motorola's goal with this was to make the cheapest possible phone, that wasn't dramatic cuts in performance and stuff, and all of their advertising leading up to the launch was replacing flip phones and stuff like that. I don't know of a terrible amount of flip phones that have front-facing cameras. So I mean, I think that if that's their actual target demo, then I don't think the front-facing camera really matters.
Yeah,
I agree.
So I wanted to, I guess, jump to our app of the week, unless you had something else you wanted to talk about, Sal.
What was that Motorola OLED phone? Did you guys have one of those? Like the totally stripped down?
No.
Maybe not OLED. It was a single color display, non-smartphone, super thin.
So the last non-color smartphone that I had was the phone that they made for the Matrix movie, which I still don't have, which made me angry because I actually saw recently that someone had one and it was like worth $75,000 or something like that. Because I actually got rid of mine. But no, I don't remember one being made by Motorola. I think that one was Sharp. I think Sal is completely frozen now.
Oh no!
He's locked in time. There's nothing we can do.
Oh, I thought he was just trying to impress me with how still he is.
Oh yeah, did you guys lose me for a second there?
I did, yeah.
Oh, sorry. It was the Motophone F3. I don't know if you guys ever had one of those.
The Motophone F3.
Yeah, it was a single color candy bar style phone. Super cheap. It was like $60 or something. It was awesome. I used to use it when I was traveling.
Did that have a front-facing camera?
No, no camera. It's too bad. It was like for placing phone calls, and like the most basic things on it, like setting the alarm clock, were insanely complex. So.
Good times. Well, the app that I have for this week is, I'm actually gonna blame Phil for this because I was up until pretty late playing it last night. Is Hidden Temple, or I'm sorry, Monument Valley.
So say I have no idea what that is.
Hidden Temple is the name of a level in Monument Valley.
I'm gonna start doing that all the time now. I'm gonna be like, here's this great thing that Russell told me about, and then just totally bring in some non sequitur like, I love hiking boots. Thanks, Russell.
It is the craziest game, and it was super short. I beat it last night, and I think you did too, Phil.
Yeah.
but
My
it was
wife got like halfway through.
so nice looking. It's called Monument Valley, and it's all of these really odd kind of building shapes, and the whole idea is that the entire level becomes this puzzle that you have to walk the character through in order to get to the other side. And you do so through all of these kind of perspective changing things where you shift the building slightly, and it creates new shapes for the character to run across and things like that. It was just a really I don't know, serene puzzle, to kind of balance through. It was really interesting to play last night. It was actually pretty calming.
Yeah,
I actually
impossible architecture, right? So like MC Escher or
Yeah.
more recently Inception, talked a lot about that. And you kind of have to suspend reality a little bit, and like your brain is telling you this one thing shouldn't work because it's on a different plane, and
Right.
it's the depth is different. But as you rotate it and it lines up, in 2 dimensions, then like, holy crap, it works now. And like once you get that, the game got a lot easier. It's beautifully done, beautifully designed. The Unity engine, which is powering the thing, very smooth, and I get how it's all working together. It's been out on iOS for a month or so now.
Yeah.
And the developers just brought it over, and it's really, really good game. What do you think? What do you guys think about the? Because Russell mentioned it's short, right? It's what 10 chapters.
I think I beat it in like an hour and a half last night, and it wasn't like I was speeding
it's-
through it or anything. I stopped for a couple of puzzles and really stared at it for a while.
I got really stuck once. I'm okay with that for was it $3, $4 app? I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I definitely think that $3 more than justifies the cost for this, and knowing that it's on iOS, I kind of want to pick it up to play on my iPad just so that it's on a bigger screen to mess around with. So I'd be perfectly happy paying for it again, apparently. But
I was thinking about that a lot too, because it's really small on a phone, right?
Yeah. Even
looks and
though it takes up the whole screen, like it really uses Android 4.4 well to make sure that everything goes away and you have the whole screen, but it's still kind of small in a couple of the puzzles.
It really gives it a sense of, not just a sense of depth, but this kind of the overall feel of the game. It's a very like lonely game because you don't really know what's going on. You don't really get much instruction. It's just you and this Ida character doing things, and kind of this not top down but this angled perspective, and just that it's not all in your face, I think really gave it a different feel. I mean, I played it on the M8 and it's wonderful on the M8 with those speakers. And I played it a lot on the GS5 and I played a lot of the Nexus 7. And even the N7, like I wanted something bigger. An 8-inch tablet, maybe? No, I wanted a bigger tablet, right, to play this on. But I get the perspective, and the perspective really worked in that case.
It also did a good job of... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Zell.
I was just saying, have you guys played Fez?
Yeah.
Was it like that at all? So I kind of got that vibe, and I haven't picked it up yet.
The movement style is similar to Fez, where like you go through the puzzles that way, but it's I wouldn't say that they're totally similar. There's definitely some similarities there. But yeah, the other thing that I thought was really interesting was that the developer intentionally built in a way for you to share not just screenshots, but like zoomed in pictures of specific things that are happening. It has a camera button that floats up a couple of times that really lets you go in and appreciate the artwork for each one of the levels, and I thought that was really cool as just kind of exploring the level kind of setup. But overall, I really felt like I think it's like $3.60 or something like that. It was an evening well spent.
Yeah, I got to pick it up. It's one of those things where I like get into iOS games or Android games, whatever, mobile games, and then I just don't buy it. And by the time I think, oh yeah, I should have bought that, I'm like, I'm happy not having the $4 or having the $4. I don't know. I can kind of just put it off long enough, and I have enough things to do on my phone that aren't games that I've been sort of moving away from that. But some of them I feel like I do need to hit on. Was it just like part of the conversation? This is one of those.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting, and I think that it's, overall, I think it's an amazing direction for games like it to head in. Where it takes up the entire screen, the audio is a big deal, and we've seen a lot of these individual pieces in mobile games already. The sword and sorcery games and stuff like that, where like the puzzles and the sound, it's weird to see them try to create experiences where this 5-inch screen in your hand is an immersive experience. But I really like that direction. I think that's a cool thing for mobile games to have.
Is Monument Valley a game that you're going to go back to and play again in a week, or is it one that you're just going to pick up and waste time with? Because I don't really get that feeling.
Maybe I know that Monument Valley is a game that I'm going to sit one of my kids down to either tonight or the next night and see how they handle those kind of puzzles. But I'm not sure that like later tonight or tomorrow or whatever I'm going to pick it up and try and go back through to see if because I almost feel like there's not a reason to. It's not like I'm going to accomplish the puzzles any faster. And in a lot of the puzzles, I just spent a lot of time moving the parts around to see how things happen. So I don't know that I would have like muscle memory like you would for a lot of puzzles like it. So I don't know. I probably wouldn't unless I was like bored sitting somewhere, and then just to kind of enjoy it, I would go through.
Did you guys pick up FTL by any chance?
No, I have avoided FTL for a really long time, and now my housemate is playing it.
Okay.
Which is making it worse. It's making it harder for me to avoid. But I have so far successfully avoided Faster Than Light.
Yeah, I have it on the PC, and I put a fair bit of time into it, and I constantly get just very frustrated by it. But I've been thinking about picking it up on the iPad, and I haven't yet. But it's like I keep thinking, maybe I should do it. So I haven't pulled the trigger yet, but we'll see where that goes.
Right on. We have 2 questions. One is going to be impossible to answer in a succinct sentence, and the other is probably just as bad, but let's give it a shot. Danny Cooper asks, with the recent trend toward corporate consolidation, Time Warner and Comcast, AT&T and DirecTV, do you think the T-Mobile Sprint merger will actually happen? I don't think that we've ever seen anything official about a T-Mobile Sprint merger, so I'm not going to answer.
Phil, thoughts?
It's
I think that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely balls in the air on that one. I have, and everybody's always talking, right? I mean, to bring that old Sasha Sagan line into it, everybody's always talking to everybody. And especially something like that, there's just so much that goes into it. By the way, I hate these Harman Kardon earbuds you get with that M8. Do I think it's going to happen? No. That's my short answer.
Cool.
What about you, Sal?
Yeah, I'm with Phil. I don't see it happening, and further consolidation in telecom is pretty tough to pull off, even with the smaller players at this point. I think people are hypersensitive to just how many alternatives there are going to be, and it's not something that's going to change. So, just my quick guess.
And then FCC and the 3-2 decision against net neutrality. Thoughts? I disagree that was a vote against net neutrality, but that's a huge topic that can't be covered in a simple question. So my thoughts are that today 5 people voted on whether or not they were going to talk about doing something later on. As long as we continue the conversation about that something and keep involving them in that conversation, then it's unlikely for bad things to happen. But if we let this die in a soundbite and stop talking about it, then we're going to wake up and go, oh my God, why did this bad thing happen? So that's my thought.
I'm not too. I don't have too much faith in the human race this week. Between glaciers falling off, net neutrality. What's next?
Still got one more day.
Huh?
I said we still got one more day.
I know.
See what happens tomorrow.
It's not even the weekend yet.
Yeah, I'm still trying to get the full picture of sort of what happened today. I don't think we have all the details about the proceedings, or at least I haven't seen them all yet. So I'm still going to keep track and see what happens. I don't think things are in a really positive place right now, but enough people are looking at it and kind of understand how important the situation is that I'm probably not as pessimistic as Phil is. But I don't have a complete faith that this is going to go in a direction where everyone's happy, especially people that are work on the internet or work for internet-based companies and stuff like that. But I don't want people to get too crazy or too worried just yet. I think, like I said, I don't know how much transparency we had into what happened today, so I think we'll find out more really soon.
Right on. And last question is, will Google finally acknowledge Windows Phone's existence and release Windows Phone apps? Well, Google has totally recognized Microsoft's existence. That's why they pulled the apps in the first place. But I think that Google, for the time being, especially with things like Tizen and Firefox OS and things like that, kind of puttering around, that Google is going to stick to their web-only guns for as many things as possible. And that's not a slight against Windows Phone so much as a desire to not spend money on things that they can't make money back on.
Yeah, I wouldn't immediately look at everything as being some sort of slap in the face or some sort of anti-competitive.
I mean, make no mistake,
Google has many Windows Phone owners then.
I was going to say, make no mistake, Google has totally slapped Microsoft in the face in the past on this, but I don't think...
Oh, no question. I'm just saying not everything, like the fact that there's no Glass app, you know, it's not immediately saying like, oh, we hate Windows Phone or something like that. It's just like, Google has had a pretty good effort about, putting more wood behind fewer arrows and stuff like that. And, these sort of web-based alternatives, web-based approaches rather.
It really
it could just be,
It really is a shame because Windows Phone has come so far.
Yeah.
Since the launch, and Google's apps have gotten so good on iOS. That's like the one thing that keeps me from even really experimenting with Windows Phone for too long, because it's not impossible, but it's such a night and day experience, right? I could use iOS if I had to. I can use Google's apps on it, and don't necessarily want to kill anybody. But switching back to Windows Phone, it's just I don't know what happens to my email when I'm using it through.
Yeah. No, that's the worst thing. When Windows Phone 8.1 rolled out, I was so excited by the new features and the new user interface that for like the 10th time I looked at my Windows Phone and went, man, I'm going to move over to that for 2 weeks and see what happens. And then I got like 6 emails back to back and couldn't find 3 of them.
Right.
Because the threading is broken and none of that stuff works on Windows Phone, and I just I then put the phone back down and kind of stepped away quietly with my head hung. So someday maybe, but anytime soon, I'm pretty sure they're going to stick with web only until they're given a real reason to. So with that, I guess we are done this week. Phil, you want to tell people where they can find you on these crazy internets?
Oh man, AndroidCentral.com, all the Mobile Nation sites. We are all everywhere now. So Connectedly.com is our brand new site that we are pimping the living hell out of and having a blast doing it. Russell's even been on there a little bit. So.
I have.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we will see everybody next week.
Awesome.